The second episode opens in the middle of the Earth Kingdom, where the suffering caused by the war is becoming more obvious than ever. A hard-working farmer is desperately trying to take his crops to the local market. Selling this harvest is the only way his family will survive the coming winter. But before he can continue his journey, a group of Earth Kingdom soldiers suddenly blocks his path. The soldiers claim that the army needs the food more than ordinary people. Without asking permission, they begin confiscating nearly half of the farmer's harvest. The farmer tries to explain that his own family depends on these crops to stay alive, but the soldiers dismiss his concerns. They insist that every civilian must sacrifice for the kingdom and accuse him of questioning the Earth King himself. Just when it seems the helpless farmer has no choice but to surrender everything, an unexpected voice interrupts the soldiers. Someone calmly orders them to put the food back. The soldiers laugh at first, assuming they are being challenged by an ordinary traveler. But the mysterious young man immediately begins pointing out mistakes in their uniforms. He knows every regulation of the Earth Kingdom military, quoting military law word for word. He even notices details like poorly matched armor, worn boots, and incorrect insignias. Realizing this stranger understands military discipline better than they do, the embarrassed soldiers decide it isn't worth it. They reluctantly return the stolen crops and leave. The grateful farmer introduces himself and thanks the mysterious traveler, who is currently hiding under the simple name Lee. Unknown to everyone around him, this quiet young man is actually Prince Zuko, living as an anonymous refugee while searching for a new purpose in life. The farmer invites Lee home for dinner as a way of showing his gratitude. Although Zuko initially refuses, the family's kindness eventually convinces him to accept. Meanwhile, the episode shifts to another location where Team Avatar is continuing their journey through the Earth Kingdom. Katara is making a long list of supplies that the refugee camp desperately needs. Food, medicine, clothing, and other necessities are becoming increasingly difficult to find. Sokka notices something important missing from the list: an earthbending teacher. Aang still hasn't mastered earthbending, and with every passing day, defeating the Fire Lord becomes more difficult. This leads to an interesting discussion about the philosophy of earthbending. Katara explains that earthbending isn't only about strength. Every move follows a concept called Jing, the different ways a warrior responds during battle. Positive Jing means attacking. Negative Jing means defending or retreating when necessary. But according to King Bumi, the most difficult form is neutral Jing. Neutral Jing isn't about rushing forward or running away. It means standing perfectly still, patiently waiting, listening, and choosing the exact right moment to strike. Aang listens carefully, realizing this lesson may become extremely important later. Before long, Aang excitedly returns from scouting a nearby town. Instead of talking about supplies, however, he is fascinated by something much stranger. The town is displaying what they claim is the largest cocoa rhino egg in the entire world. Sokka and Katara aren't nearly as impressed, but Aang enthusiastically convinces everyone to visit the town anyway. As Team Avatar heads toward the marketplace, another storyline begins to unfold. Princess Azula has officially started hunting her brother. Together with Ty Lee, she captures one of the villagers she believes has seen the Avatar recently. The frightened man refuses to answer her questions. Azula remains perfectly calm. Without raising her voice, she slowly begins torturing him until he finally points in the direction where Team Avatar traveled. The moment perfectly demonstrates why Azula is so terrifying. She doesn't lose control. She doesn't scream. She doesn't threaten. She simply smiles, while making it clear that resistance is completely hopeless. Elsewhere, Zuko arrives at the farmer's modest home. The family warmly welcomes him despite barely having enough food for themselves. During dinner, the farmer's younger brother excitedly retells the story of how Lee embarrassed the corrupt soldiers at the checkpoint. For the first time in a long while, Zuko experiences genuine kindness from ordinary people who expect nothing in return. After dinner, the farmer's sister begins talking privately with Zuko. She notices the sadness hidden behind his quiet personality. She asks whether he's searching for someone important. Zuko admits he once fought beside someone but avoids giving any details. It's clear that thoughts of Uncle Iroh still weigh heavily on his heart that night. While everyone else sleeps peacefully, the episode flashes back to Zuko's childhood. Young Zuko and Azula are once again arguing inside the royal palace after Azula cruelly throws rocks at harmless turtle ducks simply for her own amusement. Their mother, Ursa, quickly separates them. Instead of praising strength, she teaches Zuko a lesson he will never forget. Real courage isn't about defeating others. Real courage means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. To inspire her son, Ursa tells him the legendary story of the Blue Spirit. According to the ancient tale, the Blue Spirit wore a mysterious mask and carried 2 swords. Nobody knew whether he was a man or an actual spirit, but everyone knew one thing: he always defended the innocent, regardless of the danger to himself. Young Zuko listens with complete admiration, unknowingly planting the seed for the identity he will later choose during his own journey. The story becomes much more than a bedtime tale. It becomes the foundation of the hero Zuko may one day become. The next morning, Team Avatar reaches the busy marketplace. Hoping to gather food and supplies for the growing number of refugees traveling with them. As always, Aang walks in with optimism. He politely introduces himself as Avatar Aang and explains that they are escorting innocent refugees who desperately need food and supplies. Believing that people will gladly help the Avatar, Aang asks several merchants for assistance. Instead of receiving gratitude, he is met with confusion. The merchants explain that food and supplies cost money. Good intentions alone cannot pay for them. For Aang, this is a surprising reality. Before the 100-Year War, air nomads traveled freely across the world. Communities welcomed them with open arms, offering food and shelter simply out of respect. But the world has changed. The kindness that once united the nations has slowly disappeared. Seeing Aang's disappointment, one merchant offers an unusual suggestion. If he needs money quickly, he should enter a famous underground earthbending tournament called Earth Rumble. The winner receives an enormous cash prize. Hearing this, Aang immediately becomes interested. If he wins, he can buy enough supplies to feed every refugee. The only problem is finding the arena. Before anyone can figure it out, Katara quietly smiles. Within minutes, she somehow discovers the hidden location. Sokka jokingly assumes she used waterbending, but Katara simply replies that sometimes a girl has her own ways of getting information. Soon, the group arrives at the underground arena. Thousands of excited spectators surround a massive battlefield carved entirely from stone. Dust fills the air as cheering crowds wait for the next challenger. The current champion stands proudly in the center. His name is the Boulder, one of the strongest and most famous earthbenders in the competition. Massive, confident, and incredibly loud. The Boulder entertains the audience almost as much as he defeats his opponents. The announcer proudly declares that anyone brave enough to challenge him can claim the prize money. Aang knows this is his opportunity. He quietly reminds himself why he's here. This isn't about proving he's the strongest, it's about feeding innocent people. Katara encourages him with confidence. Sokka, on the other hand, gives his own version of encouragement. He simply tells Aang not to die. Moments later, however, the atmosphere inside the arena suddenly changes. The crowd erupts into even louder cheers. The announcer introduces someone who hasn't competed in weeks, a mysterious earthbender known only as the Blind Bandit. A small young girl calmly walks into the arena. She wears simple clothes. Her eyes appear completely lifeless. The audience laughs. The Boulder laughs even louder. To everyone watching, this tiny blind girl doesn't stand a chance against the strongest earthbender in the tournament. The Boulder confidently mocks her. He calls her a pebble. He barely considers her worthy of fighting. But the Blind Bandit never responds. She simply stands perfectly still. Watching closely, Aang suddenly remembers King Bumi's lesson. Neutral. Jing, wait, listen. Don't attack until the perfect moment arrives. The Boulder charges with overwhelming force, gigantic, Rocks fly across the arena. The ground shakes beneath everyone's feet. Yet somehow, the blind bandit avoids every single attack without even opening her eyes. She isn't guessing. She isn't. Lucky, she's listening, feeling every vibration traveling through the earth beneath her feet. Each movement tells her exactly where her opponent is standing. Every step, every heartbeat, every breath, she senses it. All. Only after patiently waiting does she finally move. In one explosive counterattack, she completely overwhelms the much larger boulder. The audience falls silent. Seconds later, the impossible happens. The mighty boulder crashes into the ground. Defeated, the tiny blind girl has won again. The crowd explodes with excitement. Aang can barely believe what he has witnessed. Everything suddenly makes sense. This isn't just another talented earthbender. This is exactly the kind of teacher King Bumi wanted him to find, someone who has completely mastered neutral Jing. Determined not to lose the opportunity, Aang rushes after the mysterious fighter. But before he can reach her, several elegant servants suddenly surround the young girl. They escort her into a luxurious carriage and quickly leave the arena. Aang loses sight of her. Disappointed, he wonders if he'll ever find her again. Just then, a well-dressed official approaches Team Avatar. He politely introduces himself as Ji Shen, the executive secretary of the wealthy Beifong family. He explains that the symbol appearing throughout the town belongs to one of the richest and most respected families. In the entire Earth Kingdom, the Beifongs have supported previous avatars for generations. Because of this long history, Lord and Lady Beifong would be honored to welcome Avatar Aang into their home. Sokka immediately sees another advantage. If the Beifongs are truly this wealthy, perhaps they can also provide enough food and supplies for all the refugees. With no better option available, Team Avatar accepts the invitation and begins making their way toward the enormous Beifong estate. Meanwhile, far away from the tournament, another important story quietly continues. Zuko remains at the humble farmhouse where the family has welcomed him like one of their own. Instead of treating him as a prince or a warrior, they simply treat him as another human being. For someone who has spent years surrounded by betrayal, anger, and endless conflict, this simple kindness feels almost unfamiliar. The farmer's sister notices that Zuko is incredibly skilled with his hands. Whenever he sees something broken, he instinctively repairs it, she gently tells him that there is plenty of work around the farm if he ever wishes to stay. For the first time in a very long time, Zuko is offered something he has never truly had. Peaceful home, a place where no one cares about his title. No one demands perfection. No one expects him to fight, only asks him to stay. But deep inside, Zuko knows peace may never be possible while his past continues chasing him. While Team Avatar travels toward the magnificent Beifong estate, another dangerous hunt is unfolding elsewhere in the Earth Kingdom. Princess Azula and Ty Lee continue following every clue that could lead them to the Avatar, and eventually to Prince Zuko. As they move through the forest, Ty Lee notices something unusual. Large footprints are pressed deep into the ground. Alongside them is thick white fur scattered between the trees. She immediately realizes the tracks belong to Appa, the Avatar's flying bison. But Azula notices something even more important. Second trail branches away from the bison's path. Someone has deliberately separated from the group. Azula quickly decides to split up. Ty Lee will follow Appa. Azula herself will investigate the second trail. Ty Lee hesitates. She knows entering an Earth Kingdom town alone could be dangerous. With her usual cheerful personality, she jokingly asks if Azula is worried about her. Azula calmly replies that she isn't worried about Ty Lee getting hurt. She's only worried that if she loses her temper, she might accidentally burn an entire town to ashes. Ty Lee nervously laughs, never quite sure whether Azula is joking or being completely serious. After a brief pause, Azula smiles and assures her that everything is under control. She simply wants to find her brother, bring him home, or force him to return. Those final words reveal that despite her calm expression, Azula's obsession with Zuko continues to grow stronger. Meanwhile, Team Avatar finally arrives at the Beifong estate. The mansion is unlike anything they've seen since entering the Earth. Kingdom, towering gates, perfect gardens, massive stone statues, every corner reflects incredible wealth. Inside the entrance hall, portraits of previous avatars decorate the walls. Avatar, Roku, Avatar Kyoshi, Avatar Yangchen, generations of history connect the Beifong family with the Avatar. Aang is impressed. Whoever these people are, they clearly respected the Avatar for centuries. Soon, Lord Beifong and Lady Beifong warmly welcome their guests. Their manners are elegant. Their hospitality appears flawless. They explain that supporting the Avatar has always been an honor for their family. Aang politely thanks them, but quickly explains why he has come. Hundreds of refugees are depending on him. They urgently need food, supplies, and assistance. For a brief moment, it seems the Beifongs might agree. Instead, Lord Beifong gently changes the subject. Business discussions, he says, should wait until after dinner. The conversation is interrupted by the arrival of their daughter, Toph Beifong, the very same blind girl Aang watched defeat the boulder. Only now, she looks completely different. Gone is the fearless champion from the arena. Instead, she appears quiet, soft-spoken, perfectly dressed, and surprisingly fragile. Her parents carefully guide her to the dining table. Servants cool her soup before allowing her to eat. Everyone around her behaves as though she is helpless. Aang can hardly believe his eyes. This timid young lady cannot possibly be the unstoppable blind bandit. But the moment he compliments her incredible earthbending skills, Toph instantly denies everything. She politely insists Aang has mistaken her for another blind girl. Her parents seem genuinely confused. To them, Toph is simply their delicate daughter who rarely leaves home. The conversation quickly shifts toward politics. Lord Beifong asks Katara and Sokka about the Southern Water Tribe. Rather than expressing sympathy, he sees opportunity. He begins discussing trade routes, natural resources, and future business possibilities. Even after hearing about the suffering caused by the Fire Nation, his thoughts remain focused on commerce. Katara answers politely, but it's obvious the discussion makes her uncomfortable. To Lord Beifong, every conversation eventually becomes a business negotiation. To Team Avatar, helping people matters far more than profit. Throughout the meal, Aang secretly watches Toph. Every movement feels rehearsed. Every word sounds carefully chosen. It becomes increasingly obvious that she is pretending to be someone she isn't. The fearless warrior from the arena has completely disappeared, or perhaps she's hiding. Far away from the luxurious mansion, Zuko continues adjusting to life with the farming family. The peaceful routine feels strangely comforting. He repairs broken tools, helps around the house, shares simple meals. For the first time since leaving the Fire Nation, he experiences what an ordinary family feels like. The farmer's younger brother quickly begins looking up to him. To the child, Lee isn't a runaway prince. He isn't a banished warrior. He's simply someone brave enough to stand up against injustice. That admiration begins changing something inside Zuko. For years he believed honor could only be earned through battle. Now he's discovering that kindness can inspire people just as power can. But while Zuko slowly finds peace, danger is already moving toward him. Azula's search grows closer with every passing hour, and sooner or later, the quiet life Zuko has started building will be shattered once again. As night falls over the Beifong estate, Aang can't stop thinking about the blind girl he saw in the Earth Rumble arena. The fearless fighter who defeated the mighty boulder with ease is nothing like the quiet, delicate daughter sitting politely at the dinner table. The more Aang thinks about it, the more convinced he becomes. Toph is hiding her true identity. Later, after dinner, Aang finally gets a chance to speak with her alone. He tells her there's no reason to keep pretending because he knows exactly who she is. Toph sighs, For a moment, she drops the polite act she has been performing in front of her parents. The confident, sarcastic fighter immediately returns. She admits that she really is the blind bandit. The underground tournament is the only place where she feels free. Inside the arena, nobody treats her like a helpless blind girl. Nobody tells her what she can or cannot do. There, she is respected because of her strength. At home, however, everything is different. Her parents believe she is weak. They constantly surround her with servants, protecting her from dangers that she doesn't actually fear. They have no idea that she is probably the greatest earthbender in the entire Earth Kingdom. Aang tells Toph that he has been searching everywhere for an earthbending teacher. After watching her fight, he is certain she is the one King Bumi wanted him to find. He asks her to teach him. For a brief moment, Toph actually considers the idea. Traveling with the Avatar would mean freedom. She could finally leave behind the walls that have trapped her for years. She could live her own life instead of the one chosen for her, but before she can answer, voices echo through the mansion. Servants begin searching for Lady Beifong's daughter. Toph quickly slips back into character, once again pretending to be the obedient, fragile child her parents expect. Aang realizes convincing her won't be easy. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the Earth Kingdom, Zuko wakes early and begins helping around the farmhouse. He repairs broken fences, fixes damaged tools, and works alongside the family without asking for anything in return. The farmer's younger brother watches him with admiration. To the boy, Lee isn't just a traveler anymore. He's becoming part of the family. Even the farmer's sister quietly hopes he might decide to stay. She gently tells Zuko that there is always work for someone as talented as him. The farm could use another pair of hands. She doesn't know anything about his past. She doesn't care. She simply sees a good man trying to find his place in the world. For a brief moment, Zuko imagines what life might look like if he accepted. No more chasing. The Avatar. No more royal expectations. No more endless battles. Just an ordinary life surrounded by people who genuinely care about him. It's the closest thing to peace he has ever experienced. But destiny isn't finished with Prince Zuko. Far away, Azula continues following, every clue leading toward her brother, her investigation brings her closer to the same village where Zuko has finally begun to feel safe. Every mile she travels shortens the distance between them. Back at the Beifong estate, the next morning brings another formal gathering. Lord Beifong proudly speaks about his family's long history, their wealth, and the influence they hold throughout the Earth Kingdom. He believes stability comes through power, reputation, and careful planning. Aang listens respectfully, but eventually returns to the subject that matters most. The refugees. Hundreds of innocent people are waiting for food. Can the Beifong family help them? Lord Beifong hesitates. Although incredibly wealthy, he prefers handling matters through business agreements rather than emotional decisions. Aang begins to understand that wealth does not always mean generosity. Sometimes people possess everything they could ever need, yet still struggle to help those who have nothing. As the conversation continues, Toph quietly listens. She watches. Aang speaking passionately about protecting strangers, about risking everything for people he barely knows. His words remind her that true strength isn't measured by status or money. It's measured by the willingness to stand up for others. For the first time, Toph begins seriously considering whether leaving home with the Avatar might be the right choice. Outside the estate, however, the danger continues growing. Azula is getting closer. Zuko's peaceful life is about to face its greatest test, and Team Avatar still has no idea that the Fire Nation princess is already hunting them. The paths of these two stories are slowly moving toward one another. When they finally collide, nothing will ever be the same again.